I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, party people? Welcome to the AfterBuzz show for Killing Eve Season 3. I'm your host, Erika. Unfortunately, Delia is not here to join us, but we're still going to do the Killing Eve showdown. So welcome the super duper newest fan ever of Killing Eve, Mia.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I literally love Killing Eve. As I said last episode, this is my first show for Killing Eve with AfterBuzz, but I'm obsessed. I binged it in like 1 week when we first started, when this whole pandemic started. I literally was like, this is my go-to show. I've been wanting to watch it forever. So clearly I love it. It's amazing.
All right, so this is episode 2, Management Sucks. And let's start off with, what were your overall thoughts on this episode?
So my favorite part of the episode was Eve throwing the can of Coke. When Carolyn came to talk to her, she just like threw it. I was like, this is a whole mood. Like, this is how I feel about this whole episode, this season so far. It's like a slow burn and I'm getting frustrated, but I also like can't help but like just be pulled in, just like Eve. I like keep coming back for more. I like want to know what's going to happen. So I'm excited for it to pick up, but I think they have to kind of set the stage for everything. So I'm excited to see what's to come. And also I think it's really cool to see the parallels too of Eve at the end of the episode, or in the beginning of the episode, finding out that Villanelle is still out there and she's killing, and then Eve at the end, or Villanelle at the end, finding out that Eve is alive. I think that's pretty cool that we see the parallels, like bookending the episode. That was awesome.
Yes, I agree. For me, it was a bit of a slow, too slow of a burn. Honestly, it's like, I don't know. Like, it's cool to like have guesses that are right, but it's also like boring.
You were so right.
It was kind of boring. I was like, I'm too right. Like, I'm like, I need to send them some notes. I can't be right all the time. This is too much, even for So what's interesting, let's start off with Kenny's funeral.
Oh my God.
That was like, it was so interesting to see Eve and sort of her interaction with Kenny's manager, although we don't know it's his manager at first. So what did you think about her sort of showing up to his, not actually his funeral, but his
wake?
I
don't know if that's not it.
Whatever they do when they have get together and y'all drink and have fun after.
Yes.
That thing?
Yeah. I'm like, what's it called? No idea.
And once I find the chat, I'm sure somebody in the chat can tell me. But what were your thoughts about that?
I don't know if it's just me. I may be so wrong, but I was like, there's definitely some sexual tension. Maybe there wasn't. I don't know if that's out of hand, but I was like, what's going on here? Like, it's weird. He's kind of like teasing her in this weird way, but I was kind of for it. Like, I like him as a character, I think. But then later on in the episode, he kind of starts giving me weird vibes, which I have theories. We'll get to that. I don't want to jump the gun, but yeah, kind of interesting that she did that. But I mean, Eve is like wacko right now. So I'm also not really surprised at all. But yeah, the whole funeral was just, I thought it was like cute. I love seeing the baby pictures of Kenny. I wonder if those were real. I don't know if you saw them when they have like all the pictures set up.
So adorable. Yeah,
I was like, oh my God.
That was really nice.
And the fact that he listens to S Club 7 on the toilet, I was like, oh, Kenny, I love you. We're a Kenny fam right here. Huge fan. Still love him. Rest in peace.
Okay, all right. So I wasn't looking down, people. I was trying to find the chat on my phone. So shout out to Missy and Bradley. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple things. One is something about that the editor, and I'll have to look up his name, you guys, for next week because I don't really remember. What was his name? If you remember, let me know. But
yes,
he gave me like straight up Idris Luther vibes.
Yes.
Like, go eat. I'm gonna get some. Eve is about to get some chocolate. So that was nice. So that was interesting. Although I assumed initially that he like worked with MI6 or something. Because I was like, why is he following her around like that? And then, so I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think maybe there's more to this newspaper than meets the eye. Because why are they all of a sudden, like, I know they're, I guess, good journalists or whatever, but but so that was interesting. So now we see in the bathroom this sort of interaction between Audrey, his sort of like, I guess we found out this is his love interest, so to speak. And I don't know, she was so cute, but girl, do something with your head. And then we see an interaction.
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to say it.
Sorry, like I loved her. Like I thought she was adorable, but I was like, I feel like she's trying to make her hair look too messy on purpose. Like that's too much. You could just
like clean it up.
Like I'm here to tell you what's under here is quarantine. My hair is looking crazy, so I have no shade intended. This is from one crazy head comparison to another. Girl, we need better hairstylists out there in these streets. Okay,
YouTube it, girl. YouTube.
But she was really sweet. And it was interesting because I got the kind of vibe from her that I do from Niko. Like, did she not really know what Kenny was doing? She, I don't know. Like, they had all these cute pictures, but I wonder if he shared with her what he really was looking for.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts about Audrey and specifically kind of I don't know, she's in the bathroom bawling and Carolyn comes in there like, oh God, really?
Who are you?
Thoughts about that interaction?
Of course, so Carolyn is just an icon. I'm realizing this more and more. I mean, we already knew this from the beginning, but this is really her season to shine. And I'm very excited. I think what was fascinating too was later on when they come back and they're taking the walk and the stroll and she's explaining everything to her that she knows. But I don't know. I'm curious to see if she'll be a recurring character or if it was just a one-off thing. But I was just kind of like, meh, she's fine.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Interesting. I mean, I hope they do more with her because sometimes it's like, okay, don't waste my time. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go with her. I feel like I don't know, she was trying so hard to be so mousy. So hopefully there's something there that's a little bit deeper because it's like if the other people on the paper are sort of like these hardcore, let's find out who killed Kenny type journalists, then maybe she'll be part of that same squad and we'll see.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to see. And it was interesting just to see how Eve interacted with all of our friends from the past. Now, how did you feel about Carolyn's daughter and the scenes that they showed her and sort of disconnect with Carolyn and how she's just like so happy to see the Russian guy and all of that?
Right. She's just, I really didn't know what to think of her. I feel like she's one of those characters in every scene. Maybe it's just because the show is like kind of this thriller, mystery, crime. We're just kind of on edge at all times and we're like, who done it? Like who did what? Who's on whose team? But she's the daughter, clearly. But I get this vibe that she's not fully good. I don't know, or maybe she is, but every scene I felt a different way about her. And at first I was like, oh, she's so sweet. And then I was like, she seems like, I don't know, too... And maybe it's just because juxtaposed next to Carolyn, she's way more emotional. But I was like, something is just off. Like she's just throwing me off all over the place. And I'm so mad about that magnet. That magnet killed me. The one that Konstantin gave her. And then she put it on the fridge. Ooh, I was like, girl, get it together. Don't you know what your mom does? And then Kenny was part of it too. So I'm like, where does she fit into this like spy family? See, this is why I'm like, I don't trust anyone. And I also don't know how I feel about her.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for one, it was like, okay, like it was a little too obvious with the magnet. Because I was like, okay, clearly.
Yeah, what is this magnet?
There. And I'm like, sweetie, you live in London. Why do you need a London magnet? I'm just gonna say, like, that's where you're from. But it is a nice gesture. So I'm glad you appreciate it. So that was one thing that was kind of interesting. Yeah. So with her, she just seems so I don't know, honestly, just irritating. Like, I was like, oh, she's so thirsty.
She's back again.
I mean, I understand she's grieving or whatever, but I can see where Carolyn was like, let me just eat my sandwiches in the car because I can't deal with her. Okay, so as we go through and kind of now that Kenny's dead, we're sort of seeing where everybody is again. So again, we cut back to Villanelle and her new luxurious, condo in Spain. And she gets a drop by from Konstantin. So how is that?
I have big theories, but then again, I feel like unlike you, Erika, like you are the queen. You can predict everything. I always make up these wild, outlandish predictions and they never happen. I mean, they seem to me like they could be real. But my thing is, I think, well, and I kind of already knew this from the beginning. I think this episode proved it. But Konstantin's a bad guy. Like we went through this whole thing where like him and Carolyn were cool and they were like old friends and they were pictures together. But like, I feel like they're part of the same team, but there's good and bad, and like Carolyn is good and there's just something about him, and I feel like this episode really showed it. And I think he was the one who I don't think he killed Kenny, but I think he has some part in it. And I think that and again, I'll refer back to this conversation, I think it was last season, that really struck me when him and Carolyn were sitting at the table talking, and he was like, give me the address, I need to see my family. And she was like, I can't do that. And he was mad. And he was like, well, what if it was the roles were reversed? And she was like, I don't know. This is I don't love Kenny because something could always happen to him. I think that was foreshadowing what's all going on. And I think that he has something to do with it. But anyways, okay, him showing up with Villanelle, different story. I guess it's all one and the same. But I think that Villanelle and him have such an interesting relationship. And I love seeing them on screen together. But every time it happens, I know something bad is coming. And I don't know what he was there for, but I guess we'll find out. Yeah. Whew, a web.
Very true, very true. Okay, so speaking of Villanelle, so Villanelle gets her first sort of like test case or whatever. So if you want to be a keeper, you got to learn how to babysit, girl. So we see her with this young 19-year-old, and she's supposed to teach him the business of how to kill. It doesn't turn out well. So what was interesting, well, a couple of things were interesting. In the scene with her and Deshka, it was interesting to find out that she basically, the whole thing with the paprika was a tribute to her, which I thought was like kind of cool, because I was like, it was kind of, why did you put paprika in her mouth?
Yeah.
So that was interesting, kind of a little backstory that I thought like kind of made it make more sense, because I really thought that whole murder last episode was a little messy for Villanelle.
Yeah.
But to see that she was kind of doing something a little cutesy with it makes it make sense. So how did you feel about her management skills?
Villanelle kills me. Like sometimes she's funny and I like laugh. Like, okay, this is just getting old. Like, what are you doing? You're crazy. So when she said roar, I thought that was like so funny because they've been using that for all the previews. And I was like, oh, we finally got the moment. It's nice. But I think she was, I'm like, how is she as a manager? I think she's exactly what I expected her to be. Like, she's messy. She's a little bit messy. And I was shocked that she killed Felix, but at the same time, I wasn't. And it reminded me a lot of like it paralleled last season with the little boy in the hospital who was next to her. Right. So I don't know. It's like you think she's going to get close to these people, and then she's just like, boom, bye, you're done. But
see, I don't think, okay, so I agree with you in that I think she did get close to him, but at the end of the day, like he messed up the kill. So instead of just making it quick and easy, he's like covered in blood. There was no way she was going to get him out of the house at that point. So that's
a real good point.
That's what I was like, she got to kill him because he's covered in blood. He's choking a person. He's like living his best life in this murder. And now you're all bloody. How am I going to get you back in your clown outfit? Like, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. So it kind of made sense to me. I think she did have a funny moment with him, but clearly he was a bit more mentally disturbed than we saw in the first clip.
That is so true. You make a point.
Because he was like, okay, what are you doing? You just sit here making a mess. Like, it was just crazy. So
yeah, that was disturbing to see.
Yeah, so that was the part where I was like, okay, I felt she had to kill him. Not saying that she wouldn't have anyway, but I do feel like the moments before where they were talking about loving someone who doesn't love you back, I think genuinely she was touched by him to some extent. But, like, you're not gonna let yourself get caught because this fool is covered in blood. Like that was true.
I'm surprised she didn't let him go off alone to do it. I was thinking that when she was like, bye. Like I get it's training, but I'm like, what if he like left, a fingerprint or something behind? And clearly he did. He left more than a fingerprint. But I just was like, this is odd. She just let him go off. I wonder if she'll get new trainees every episode until we stick with
Well,
one.
I think what'll be interesting is if she kills the trainee, because that's what I kind of thought when Konstantin showed up. He's gonna be like, girl, you messed up that one. That's what I thought he was gonna say. So it was interesting that he didn't. So one thing it'll be interesting to see if she has any repercussions. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, I think this is going to impact her vision of what her job is going to be. Obviously, her visions of promotion. And two, it's like, you messed it up. You know, like, that's the thing as a manager, when you mess up, it's all on you. So, you know, now that you killed them and everything's messy, it is sort of her fault. So it'll be interesting to see where they come down on that. Yeah. So speaking of management, because the title of this scene is this episode was Management Sucks. And so that was sort of like the theme throughout. So we see Carolyn in this really uncomfortable meeting, like the day after Kenny's, funeral or whatever. How did you feel about that whole scene and interaction?
So I feel like now at this point, I'm a little biased because when I was looking for news and gossip, I found this article that talked about like the emotions of women and how they grieve and how like, I don't know how I feel about it. Haven't really attached a personal feeling to it yet, but the article was talking about how like she could grieve in the way she wants to. And if she like wants to go back to work and like do all that stuff, it's not too soon. And it's just like the expectations of mothers in society. And I thought that was an interesting take. I don't really know how I feel about it yet, but I was like, this is normal for Carolyn. I just feel like, of course she'd come back to work. Like, when was it? Is this a week later? I don't even know when this is, but she came back soon. She should be on leave. So I just thought it was fun, and I love the unbuttoned shirt and how she literally sat there and was like, "No, this is how it's supposed to be. Like, it's fine."
Yeah, I love that.
I'm like,
she was
big
like,
mood.
I like it. I like it. Now what?
Big mood.
Yeah, I thought that scene was really interesting. I think although, you know, they're like, oh, you should be on leave, you should be grieving, you should be whatever. I think ever since that guy, okay, you guys, next week I'll be better with the names. Ever since he came back or whatever, now that he's sort of her supervisor, he was always going to do her like that. So she was never in charge of the meeting. It didn't have anything to do with Kenny or the funeral or whatever. And I think she kind of, you know, I mean, I think that's his excuse now. But I think had, you know, it not been Kenny's funeral, it still would have been his meeting. You know what I'm saying? Because he was over her. And I think that's one of the things, you know, one of the fallouts from Rome that she's not quite adjusting to. So I think that's an interesting one. And I really like the scene of her in the car where like she was crying, you know, like you finally see her tear up in her own kind of like stoic way. So that was amazing. What did you think?
Dude, her acting is incredible. This might be one of the best scenes, I think, in Killing Eve so far. Like, just from an acting standpoint, she was incredible. And I love, like, it was like the perfect pacing of tears. I know that sounds so weird, but it was like they were welling, and like she almost cracked when she had to say out loud, like, the death of my son. And that was when like the eyes were really just watery. I was like, oh, she's so good. And then I also like just the arc in general with her in this episode, not even the show as an entirety, but in this episode, she goes from like no emotions, you know, at his funeral wake, whatever we're calling it, because we don't know, there. And she's like, yeah, he committed suicide, like straight up to Eve, like he did it. To this, literally in the car, it's like seeing her like be, as you predicted last week, like so unemotional to then being emotional is awesome. I absolutely loved it. She's totally going to avenge his death. Exactly what you said too. I'm with you now. I'm with you. You literally know everything. I'm like, yes.
But it was really interesting because that was her thing. She was like, I can't investigate it. I can't be tied to it. I can't, you know, but it's my son and I can't even go after really who killed him or whatever. So that was a really interesting, a very interesting twist. Or not interesting.
She's going to find a way. You think she's going to find a way?
It was an interesting twist because like I already said, that's what she's going to do. But I did feel like her acting was amazing. I was really impressed by, you know, kind of like when she finally did break down, how she broke down. You know, so I thought that scene was an amazing scene. So before, you know, we get another scene between Carolyn and Eve. So Carolyn goes down to Eve's dumpling shop. And every time I see Eve in there, I swear I want dumplings. Like,
I know.
I'm like, and more importantly, I'm like, I kind of want to make some dumplings. I'm like, I order them. I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it. But yeah, so
inspiring.
Carolyn come there and she's, she's talking to Eve, and Eve is kind of like, I'm over you. And so what were your thoughts? What did you feel about that particular scene?
It was a classic Carolyn Eve moment. And again, I loved her throwing the Coke can and just staring at her. And Carolyn's like, all right, getting to the point. That was so funny. And I just think she knew what she was doing. I think Carolyn knew she was going to get what she wanted from Eve in that moment, but it was setting it up for her to like then come back and find her and say, like, I'll do this with you. I don't think she was expecting it at the house clearly, but I think she knew sooner or later that Eve was going to come back and like do this because she cares about Kenny so much.
Right. I thought that she went there and was like, okay, I want you, to help me or whatever. And then he was like, you're not my manager. I thought that's why she pulled out those pictures. She's like, Eve is back. I'm sorry, Villanelle is back.
Yeah.
And that's what she thought was going to get Eve to like come back into the camp. And Eve was like, nah, I'm still good. Cute photos, but let me get back to my dumplings. You know what I'm saying? Because I get paid by the hour up in this joint. So I got to go back and dumplings. And so I thought it was a really interesting scene because, as you mentioned, the whole how Eve reacts to learning that Villanelle is, still on the prowl or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, just suppose that with how Villanelle reacts to finding out that her shot didn't kill Eve, that Eve is still alive. Mm-hmm. And how kind of she almost has a physical, they both have a physical reaction because then we see Eve throw up. I was like, what's she throwing up for? I was like, are you pregnant?
The dumplings?
Are you pregnant by Niko? Like, I'm confused. Like, I know it's upsetting, but
that'd be the craziest plot twist.
It would be for so many crazy, silly reasons. But but I guess the whole point was because later we see Villanelle and she seems to be affected physically by the news. So I guess that was their point. Because I was like, she's throwing up. That was a little over the top for me, but I get it. Girl, you upset to learn that your girlfriend is out there murdering people.
So crazy. The whole thing is just wild.
Okay. So she watched that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Eve and the newspaper people and how they basically just call her up on Kenny's phone, which was hilarious. What were your thoughts on that? I thought that was adorable. I thought that scene was super cute. I was like,
it was. Oh. I'm telling you, it must just be my inner desires coming out. But when they started blowing up Kenny's phone when she was sitting at the bar, I legitimately thought it was going to be Kenny somehow getting a hold of Eve saying, I'm alive. Duh. I staged this so we could blah, blah. I don't know what, but in my head, I literally thought it was going to be Kenny. And I got so sad when it wasn't. I was like, oh, these fools. But then I was like, okay, this is fine. We need some new characters. Season 3. Let's amp it up. So that was fine. But I'm telling you, I think there is a plan in the office because when they were going back and forth and they were like, why did you hire him? Or Eve was like, why did you hire him? And they were like, we're not talking about that. I was like, are you guys bad guys? Like, what's going on? Do you know something we don't know? Kind of like you were saying when we started this after show. Like, you're like, do they know something? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I just feel so confused. What about you? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like it was a really interesting interaction. So when she goes to the newspaper, and to me, it was so interesting because I don't know if it's from the dumplings or the drinking or whatever, but they just seem to kind of bumble their way through Eve, right? They're like, okay, well, yeah, we didn't know. We just guessed, girl. We assumed he was in here. His phone was sitting on a table. Who else would have took it? So then, and so she's like, oh, okay. And then they're like, okay, well, you let us open the phone and then we'll give you the drive. And then she gives them the phone and they're like, well, actually the police have the drive. So I'm looking at Eve like, girl, do better. Do better, girl. Stop drinking. Because you should not be falling for this. You're a professional. They're just like,
it might have been you.
Right. I'm like, okay, how are you getting, bamboozled by the fat boy? Like, stop it, girl, stop it. But
You're killing me.
But however, though, I say that, but then not so much the kind of, the nerdy coworker or whatever, but the manager of the paper, there is something very MI6 about him. Because to me, I was like, the way he's been walking up to her the whole time, he feels like she knows something, and he's been already sort of halfway casing her. So I do feel like who knows really who's behind this newspaper? You know what I'm saying? Who really knows? Like he lets people investigate what they want, and he says this and this, but his actions, I mean, I guess he is driven and they loved Kenny and all that, but he does seem like there's a little bit more to him, at least the manager or the owner. It does seem like there's a little bit more to him than meets the eye. I will say that.
I agree.
For sure. And it was so interesting. I mean, I'm not sure, like part of me is like, okay, are they really these bumbling idiots that are just like tripping Eve up, or is this an act? I don't know. Like I'm 50-50. Part of me is like, okay, maybe they're just spies pretending to be stupid. I don't know. Or whatever. I think it'll be interesting to see, or maybe this is going to be the basis of her new team. So it's going to be her and them kind of reporting into Carolyn, like kind of a revamp of, seasons before, where but now instead of her trained people, she's going to have these everyday folks that are kind of going to be in it. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go with that sort of.
Yeah. Good storyline.
So that'll be interesting to see. So we didn't see any Niko today, and Villanelle, she still ain't getting none. So that'll be interesting. She didn't have a love interest.
And what we still don't know about this wedding. I'm waiting. I'm like, they're probably just gonna leave that.
I guess they broke up, girl. I guess she was like, look,
But how did she literally go from Eve, like killing Eve, to this woman? Like, when did this happen? How did this lady know she was a killer? I'm fascinated. I want to know more. Maybe it'll be a spinoff. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, I do feel like Villanelle is very loose with her relationships. So
that's true.
Like one minute we cool, the next minute we living together, and then the next minute I'm off to another country. So that part,
true.
I do agree. I wonder if any of her, if her wife will pop back up, or her wife's money when she needs it. That too will be interesting. So that was kind of so it's kind of interesting to see how they get together. Now again, I think there is some question on the whole thing with Konstantin, because he's still kind of in the mix of everything. Like I was kind of a little surprised, like, why are you at the boy's funeral? Like, I know you and Carolyn used to like smash or whatever, but I was like, you're like on the other side, right? You're like on the other side. So that was interesting too, that he even went to the funeral. Because I was like, okay, why is he there and everybody acting like that's okay?
Yeah. What's happening? I hope we find out next episode. I have so many questions now. This generated even more questions in me.
I know. I totally agree. So, okay. So finally, so now this is my question for you, since we're getting down to the end of the episode. So when Eve goes to Carolyn, basically at this point, for help, because she's been bamboozled by the people at the newspaper.
Bamboozled is the word.
So what are your thoughts? Like, do you think she would have went to Carolyn no matter what? Or do you think she went to Carolyn because she knows Carolyn can get the drive from the police? Dun, dun, dun.
That is a really good question. And I'm processing it all. I'm like, I think she would have gone to her anyways. I just think she's always going to find her way back to Carolyn. And I think she knows that Carolyn will get the job done. And she wants to know as badly as Carolyn. And they're the only two who care that much. Do you know what I mean? Like, Eve can't do this alone. And like you said, she's basically being bamboozled by the newspaper people. She doesn't know their motives. Do they even care about Kenny? So it's like you find someone else who's relating and grieving the same way as you. And then you're like, let's do this thing. Like, let's lock it in. So
Yeah, I agree to an extent. Like, I feel like she was motivated, at least in this episode, by needing something from Carolyn. And
Yeah.
Carolyn kind of was like, okay, what do you need, girl, for real? So I think that was part of it. You know what I'm saying? Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, the people at the newspaper, they're not going to be able to get it for you. So I still feel like
That's true.
they're going to be her, they may be her new team. But it
Mm.
was interesting that this finally pushed her back into, you know, because I think even this episode, she started off again like, you know, like, oh, I'm not going to go back to it. I'm, you know, the reluctant hero thing. It's like, okay, come on, get with it. And so then finally, sort of with the push from the newspaper people, because, you know, the owner was kind of like, oh, so you really think he killed himself? You know, I think he said some things that kind of spurred something in her.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of pushed her. And the fact that Carolyn can get her what she wants.
Yeah.
So
She'll be
that'll
like working with both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if, you know, if Carolyn actually like comes off the rails this season.
I'm excited for this ride. I can't wait. I'm on board. I'm locked in. Let's go.
I know, exactly. All right, so let's do our special segment first, right? Or
Yes.
no, I'm sorry. Or I guess, or
Yeah, do your special segment. Let's do
special
it.
segment. Okay. All right. So, okay. So today, our special segment, you know, we'll call it Women Who Kill or whatever.
I love it.
Okay, so this one, because I had been doing mostly assassins, but I found this article that actually indicated that the creator, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she created Villanelle's character based on a actual real life prisoner named Angela Simpson. Okay.
Ooh.
And she said because she said when Angela Simpson was, you know, going through trial and they were showing her trials and stuff in TV, she had like such a girlish, you know, quality, and she would just like be laughing and joking and stuff, kind of like Villanelle does.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, so that was really what drove her to kind of, you know, make this dark character also have this kind of light girlishness about her. And okay, so Angela Simpson is a Phoenix woman who freely admitted in jailhouse interviews to committing one of the most gruesome murders in Phoenix history, and will spend the rest of her natural life in prison. She basically, she lured she lured this man into her home, and he was disabled, so he's in a wheelchair. She lured him into her apartment with promises of drugs and sex. Once there, she tortured him, killed him, dismembered him, and then set his body on fire, like behind a garbage truck, behind the garbage canister or whatever. And actually, she was so demented that because he was in a wheelchair, she actually gave him a mirror so he could watch her as she beat him and stabbed him and pulled out his teeth and whatever and all this. So she tortured him for. I know, basically, she tortured him for 3 days, and then, you know, and then I think she sliced his throat, and like she did a whole bunch of different things. Now, what is interesting about Angela Simpson, outside of her just being crazy, was how she acted. And I think this is where the creator got her inspiration from, was how she acted during her, excuse me, when she was interviewed by the police. So the police were like, okay, you know, she was like, yeah, I beat him to death, I killed him, and then I cut him up. And then she said she would have, you know, she her only regrets were that there was another, you know, robber that she didn't get a chance to kill when she had a chance. And then she said she felt, this was a good one too. I'm sorry, my quote here. Neely, basically, he was a snitch and he got what he deserved. And she didn't like the idea of people in her family living in a building where there were snitches. So all of that to say that, you know, snitches really do get stitches in her case.
The fact that she...
And then what was so crazy, really at the very end, she had no remorse about killing him. But at the end of the day, she was okay with getting life in prison because she said a lot of her family was in prison. So she was okay with going to prison with her family members. And they were like, oh, okay, you know, do you regret it? Do you feel like you would ever kill again? And she was like, you know, basically her response was, would you kill again? And she said, if the opportunity arises, I hope so.
This is like very Ted Bundy-esque. Like,
yes,
just being like, what's up? Snitches get stitches.
Right. And she literally was like torturing people. And then there was like this armed robber who lived up the street. And she was like, I just didn't have the time to kill him, but I should have taken the time. So she is a very interesting character. And she's the basis of our lovely Villanelle. So
thank you, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, question mark.
Exactly. So coming up next, you guys, will be our news and gossip.
Yes, I like how I did my own iconic.
Okay,
so news, thank you. Just vocally trained, you know. Absolutely not. So our producer Bree actually found this article. It's very fun. It's in Cinema Blend, and it's basically talking about how killing Eve actually mirrors Grey's Anatomy, which, as you know, Christina Yang plays Eve, was also in Grey's Anatomy. So it says Villanelle's promotion within the 12 is actually mirroring Christina's journey in Grey's 4th and 5th seasons. Also, I've never seen Grey's. I don't know if you have, but this was interesting.
I never have, or not have like once or twice. Like not enough. I'm not really a fan. But
I really need to. And if you guys are watching in the live chat, let us know if you might know more about this than we do. But I still find it very interesting. So it says, when Grey's Anatomy's 4th season began, the original cast of interns were promoted to attending surgeons on Seattle Grace. Christina is given her own slew of interns who she immediately dismisses as idiots. What's more, Yang doesn't even learn their names. Instead, assigning each intern a number. She ends up being a pretty awful teacher for the next 2 seasons, as Christina's personal ambition is her driving force. Sandra Oh, everybody.
Woo!
Yes,
okay.
So there's parallels, which is cool.
That does not inspire me to watch Grey's Anatomy, I'm just gonna say. But I'm clearly a far darker person, so that's probably why. All right, Shout out to the people in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you guys really for sticking with us even through quarantine times and for making us the ESPN of the TV talk. So thank you so much, because we love it that you guys are here. And certainly comment, like, subscribe, send some comments, because I'll be home, so I'll respond. So just comment for us both. And before we get up out of here, let's do some quick predictions.
Yes. Okay, so I think
your
Villanelle.
AfterBuzz TV.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
So sorry, I was like, oh my gosh.
I was like, wait, did we Houston, we have a problem. Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so I think Villanelle and Eve are gonna reunite. Will it be next episode? I don't know. I mean, they killed Kenny in the first, so there's no telling when they'll just throw them together. I think they should, because it's been moving slow. And then I think Konstantin, if we're gonna find out that he's bad, it's coming. That's my predictions.
All right. I agree. I mean, I think Konstantin has always been mostly bad. I think it would honestly be shocking if he was good.
Yeah.
But I think part of the issue is I think we still don't know who the 12 is. So I fundamentally believe that some of the 12 are actually within government and probably, Carolyn's boss as well, honestly. So I think you never really know whose side anybody is on. I do think that Villanelle and Eve are going to clash sometime soon, but I think it's not like they're going to run into each other. I think maybe Villanelle will kill somebody again, and I guess Eve will be tracking her, or however that works out. So I think that should be interesting. And I think Carolyn is going to go more and more off the rails. So I feel like right now she has things, she's upset and she's grieving, but I think she's eventually going to go more off the rails as time progresses, because I think she's going to become more and more vigilant about finding Kenny's killer.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
And I totally agree with you. I think that would be interesting to see, because I think someone, if it's not Konstantin, then it might be the editor. But I think someone close to Kenny was part of the people that got rid of him.
Someone's planted in that office. We know it.
Exactly. It might be that little fat, goofy friend, because it's always the one you least suspect. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Join us here again next week, same place, same time. So, Mia, where can everybody find you, and what would you like to promote?
Yes, you guys can find me on Twitter at Hot Mess Mia, because it's always a hot mess over there, as I always say. Treat my mind. I'm on Instagram at yours truly Mia, because I write. I also make content. And I'm also on the Insecure After Show, which is right before this, I think 2 hours before this on Monday. So you can check me out there.
Ooh, cool beans. So jealous. All right, you guys. I am Erika Edwards. You can follow me on all of my social media at ERIKAD as in door Edwards. Ciao for now, folks.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.